Haven't been all at sea for the best part of a month after the death of me granny. The arrival of new friends who knew nothing about my own shitty home life was an absolute godsend. They were dodgy as fuck, but then so was I. I mean, who was I to look a gift horse in the mouth, especially after all the shit I caused? My time with dreadlocks, or Bon White as everybody used to call him on account of his surname being White, was a whirlwind. On Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays, we'd arrive early in the evening at his flat on Castle Street. I had to be careful about this, as it was highly likely to bump into me dad outside shoots. The idea was to meet there early, and instructions to be meted out to those of us who were on the payroll. From that point, people would slowly trickle in. Beer would be handed about, and a slow but heady build-up to the night's proceedings would commence. There was incense burning at all hours, a few dream catchers dotted about the place, and movie posters on the wall. It was the first time I'd ever heard of films like Mean Streets or the Rocky Horror Picture Show or, Scarface, things like that. Whenever I'd ring the doorbell, Bon would answer, point to the back of the flat and shout shrilly, "Get in the back of the van!" I had no idea why he did this every single day, till one day he forced me to sit through Whitney and I, and then I understood. There was a never-ending film banter going on in that flat every single night. Nothing was ever mentioned about my role or anybody else's of a night, at least not till the end of the evening. I'd get handed a can of Tennent's, offered a seat next to Bon, and generally left alone till I felt comfortable enough to speak. For the most part, Bon would big me up, telling everybody I was beyond my years or I had the steady nerve of a brain surgeon. Everybody else ignored me, but as time wore on, I got to know the characters that frequented the place, got to know their tics. Cha, Fishy McDermott, who was a fifth year in school and generally put the fear of God into most people, was actually a nervous wreck. Immediately I could see this, and any fear I may have had of him soon dissipated on seeing him up close and personal. He was needy and paranoid, and always said that nobody was his friend, and that nobody ever asked him to do interesting shit. When Bon jokingly responded by saying that that's because he was no crack, he'd storm out with a flat in a huff, accusing everybody of being cunts. The whole flat would burst into laughter, and then Bon would have to go after him and convince him to come back, that everybody was only having a laugh. Then there was Garage O'Leary, who was small and wiry and a mouthy fecker at that. He always reminded me of Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas. One minute he'd be making wise cracks at others and giving them back, having the banter. The next minute he'd be saying he's going to cut you up, the fucker. Still, he liked me, so that was fine. He always said to me, Baden, you're actually quite sound, as if he just realised it. And then there was Red, or Quiva Brennan as she was actually called. Now Quiva was a fine art student at the IT in Sligo, and originally from Castlebar. She started hanging out at Bon's at more or less around the same time as me. She was actually going out with Bon, which made me fucking jealous, but at least I could be close to her whenever I was in the flat. Her smell drove me mental, sweet and pleasantly pungent. I never had the courage to ask her where she got it from. Until later, I discovered it was patchouli oil when I was perusing in the body shop, as I knew she used to shop there. She always sat beside me when we were in that flat. I suppose she felt I needed mothering. Not that I let on that I ever did. I mean, everybody knew my situation. How could they not in a town of 20,000 people? But nobody ever mentioned it, and that's the way I liked it. The only time it was ever mentioned was that one time when I walked into the flat and Fishy blurted out, "Well, hello, if it isn't the granny killer!" I stood there, shocked and basically unprepared for what he had said. But I quickly gathered my wits and I pointed my finger in his face and I said, "I may be 13 fucking fish face, but I'll cut your balls off in a flash. Watch your fucking tongue." Nobody said anything for a few moments, but Bon glared at Fishy with a monstrous look of contempt on his face and finally said, "Well, that's you told, isn't it, Fishy? Now shut your fucking mouth." Quiva gestured for me to sit down beside her, and seething inside and not a little hurt, I took my usual spot. That was the first time I felt I had two parents who truly cared about me. Albeit, a mum I wanted to sleep with and a dad who taught me to offload acid and speed. Regardless of my own dysfunctional home life, my time in Castle Street gave me an enormous sense of calm. Like a refuge against the chaos of my normal life. There was always warm, there was always food on the table. The two most important people in the room liked me and, for the most part, looked out for me. Regardless of what we got up to when we left the flat to go selling, I'll always be thankful for those two for giving me a sense of calm at a time I needed it most. It was also the place I discovered films and music. There was always a film playing in that flat. One of the videos we would have rented from the video shop in Wine Street car park. Bon supplied the guy who worked there with some hash, so we could keep the videos as long as we wanted. It was the first time I saw films like Reservoir Dogs or Raised in Arizona and the Godfather series. It was also the first place I'd ever seen a black and white film, and that was The Apartment, and I fell in love with Shirley MacLaine just as much as I had with Red. But it was the music that made its mark on me. Bon had a huge music collection, and we used to listen to the Stone Roses, the Rolling Stones, Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers, the Pixies, the Small Faces, Neil Young. And if we weren't listening to that, MTV would be on in the background. And that was where I discovered the Prodigy. Fuck me, they were amazing. The first time I saw No Good Start the Dance was when I was sitting on my own in the flat in Castle Street, waiting for everybody else to come back from the Four Lanterns with food. The Prodigy slowly walk into an old abandoned warehouse. The build up to the music is slow, eerie keyboards, until it bursts into a cacophony of multiple breakbeats, just as Liam Howlett breaks down a wall with a mallet. And all the while, Keith Flint and Leroy Thornhill are doing ridiculous things with their feet. I was mesmerised by it. It was dark, it was edgy, it was angry, and it was fucking banging. I remember the second time I saw it, we were all sitting around drinking and smoking a spliff. I had had about 2 cans at that stage and was feeling a little bit merry and happy. Bon only ever allowed me to have 2 cans as I had to have my wits about me when we went out dealing. I was sitting back on the couch, allowing the warm fuzz of beer to filter through my body. It was like in the movies. You know, when everything else in the room gets shunted to the background, back into the dark, and you're the only person left standing in the light. And in this case, it was me, engulfed by the music. So as far as I was concerned, nobody was there. I was all on my own. So there was no reason to feel embarrassed. So, as the beat started taking over, I slowly stood up. I felt the breakbeat pulse through me. I've no idea what I was doing, but it all felt so natural. The song went through its various ups and downs, slowly, patiently and aggressively waiting for its final crescendo. Liam has broken through the wall and is peering menacingly through. Kate has been taken away in a straitjacket and placed in a glass box. And all the while, me and Leroy are kicking up a prodigy step like you wouldn't fucking believe. The song finishes, but MTV keeps playing in the background. Not that I can hear it. The rest of the room is all quiet. Nobody says a word. Until eventually, Bon shouts out, "Way! Ban's a fucking dancer! Who'd have thought?" That night, we all went out selling and made a shitload of money. At the end of it all, Bon gave me a tiny little white tablet and told me to enjoy myself as I'd earned it. The Prodigy and Quiva will become the loves of my life, and both will play a central role in my final downfall.